Good evening. My name is Bishop Colette Matthews Carter, and I serve as the director of the Center for Dialogue and Action at Interfaith Works, CNY. And on behalf of the CDA staff, we also call it the CDA, community partners, and volunteers, I'd like to welcome all of you here this evening to our Community Police Town Hall meeting. The purpose of this evening's event is to share with our community partners, our stakeholders, our community at large, our observations from the 2023 Community Police Dialogue Project. We also see this town hall as a critical touch point to receive additional input, suggestions, thought partnership, and much needed support. This project reflects our unified commitment to ensure that there is a pathway forward as it relates to community and police relations. We've had the great pleasure of working in tandem with members of the Mayor's Office, Common Council, Syracuse Police Department, and community residents, all who have weighed in into the desire and the need for residents and police to have greater understanding and improved communication. We are acutely aware of the historical tensions that exist between police and communities, particularly communities of color. So we see this project as one of the several strategies that our municipality can employ to create bridges of understanding. The Center for Dialogue and Action has been committed to this work for over 25 years, and today more than ever, we seek to deepen our understanding and reimagine with all of you what our city can be and become. I now have the distinguished pleasure of bringing forth community leaders who have supported this project. First, we have our president, Madam President Helen Hudson of the Syracuse Common Council.
Good evening, and welcome to the Van Robinson Common Council Chambers. I just had to say that. And before I move any further, I'm going to do a little housekeeping. Phones, if you have them, please turn them down or silence them. Thank you. I'm pleased to welcome you here tonight, and I think that this is a wonderful opportunity to talk about the courageous conversations. Because as Bishop Collette said, there has been a lot of tensions within our community with police-community relations. I'm going to say I was pleasantly pleased that I saw the report. And when I looked at the report, the work that's being done is phenomenal. It's phenomenal to have police interacting with the community, and it's not begrudgingly. So to see us coming together to actually make a better community, that kind of softens my heart a little bit, makes me happy. And I'm pleased with the work that has been done over this past year with the collective. You have done a wonderful job, and you have actually taken us to a new level that I think that we can all be proud of. And all we need to do is just continue the work we started, and everybody needs to listen. Not just with your ears, but with your heart, because we are all people. And I think that we all want the same things in our communities, safe neighborhoods, our children to have great educations. We all want the same thing. So with that, I want to say again, welcome to the Van Robinson Common Council Chamber. Open your ears. You're going to hear a lot of good things that's been happening in the past year with the community dialogue. So, thank you.
Thank you so much, Madam President. We appreciate your continued support. Now I'm pleased to bring to the podium our Chief Joseph Cecil. Yeah. All right.
I recently became a senior citizen and I noticed I had to carry notes with me from now on. So I have to carry notes. And I don't like keep having my back to people, but I guess it's impossible here. So I just want to thank everyone that was involved in this project. All the people at Interfaith Works. There is nothing more powerful than sitting across the table from someone with a different background, culture, religion, or occupation, and discovering at the end of the day that you have more in common with that person than not in common. And from those commonalities, you begin to put yourselves in each other's shoes, and you begin to learn a new perspective. And that new perspective is something you carry with you for the rest of your life. That's the power of these dialogues. That's what we see in these dialogues. Learning from each other through conversations and perspectives, breaking down barriers, asking hard questions, and listening to those answers and respecting the perspective of those who answer and those you don't agree with. I think that's one of the biggest issues in this country right now, is that in the past, we could disagree and be respectful. Now it seems to be, and maybe I'm just going by social media, but I don't think so. If I don't agree with 100% of what you agree with, I get written off. And it's just a terrible way to try to have democracy, try to have respect, try to have relations. These dialogues try to break that down. We have to get away from that idea that if I don't believe 100% of what you believe, and you don't believe 100% of what I believe, we should be able to still agree with each other, still get along with each other, still respect each other. And I think that's what those dialogues do. I have to go on and say this. I'm going to embarrass Police Officer Rich Solomon a little bit here. But from an SPD's perspective, you could not have found a better representative than Officer Richard Solomon to head up these dialogues and work with these dialogues. I'm not saying this simply because I helped draft him into this job. I'm saying it because he has one of the most unique stories of tragedy and triumph himself before reaching SPD. That's Rich's story to tell, so I'm not going to say it. I'm not going to tell it tonight. But I will say this. Never in my long career, 39 years now, have I seen a more dedicated and compassionate officer join our ranks. Maybe his arduous path to SPD is the difference. Maybe it's the struggles and hardships he endured to ultimately pin that badge on his chest that makes the difference and shaped him. I don't know. What I do know is that he approaches every shift and every job with a smile on his face, and every call as another opportunity to highlight SPD and now to highlight Interfaith Works and these dialogues. Every call that he goes on. I don't know this because I'm watching Rich Solomon's body cam footage, by the way. I know this because of the amount of compliments that come across my desk. And they come across frequently. People talking about his attitude, his good-natured manner, his ability to de-escalate situations, how he's made them feel safe, and most of all, they speak about his sincerity, his compassion, his desire to make a bad situation better. One person wrote, in 60 years, I've never met a more compassionate officer than Rich Solomon. That was one of the letters. Another one wrote about never meeting a better human being and an officer than Rich Solomon. Another woman wrote about struggling to shovel her driveway, and he stopped and helped her shovel it. There are several of them in there that he deserves a raise. Those are all in the same handwriting, so I'm a little suspected. I suspect those a bit, but my point is this. When you get folks together, a quality operation like Interfaith Works with their dedicated leader, Beth, and all the workers they have around them. Beth, do you still work for Interfaith Works? I'm just making sure. I see these faces now. I didn't know you did. I just want to make sure. When you get dedicated institution like Interfaith Works and you put them together with dedicated, compassionate officers like Rich Solomon, you're going to break down barriers. You're going to have these different perspectives. They're going to find these perspectives in these dialogues, at these tables. And when they leave that table, those perspectives and the respect that they've garnered inside those rooms, they're going to carry with them throughout their careers. I guarantee Rich is talking about this all the time when he's on the department. I guarantee folks that were in part of these dialogues are now talking about this perspective they have, and they're going to carry it with them throughout their lives. So I think that's all I have to say. I hope I didn't cover. Did I have 5 minutes up here? Do I have to do 5 minutes?
Okay, Chief. No, you're fine.
Keep going.
Thanks very much. I really appreciate it. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you, Chief. Now we're going to have remarks from our council member, Joel Majak, who's also the chair of public safety.
Yes.
All right.
Well, I gotta hurry up because I got a chicken dinner waiting for me at home. I see County Legislator Harvey here, and I see my friend Pat Hogan, Patrona Joe Rouser. Those are counselors. Who else? Marty Nave right here, Amir Gathers, and Corey Williams. Those are counselors. So welcome. Hernandez, good to see you. See, look at this right here. No, Helen already spoke. No more for her. All right. Good to see all of you. As Bishop said, I'm the chair of public safety, and I want to thank Madam President for giving me the opportunity to serve as the chair of public safety for the last 4 years. Thank you, Madam President. As the chair, when I ran in 2019, one of my platform was community police relation to bridge the gap. And when I came and started work in 2020, I came in contact with Interfaith, and I knew the work, but the depths of it, I just didn't know until I got here, right? And so ever since I've been working with Interfaith and the police department and the counselors on this project, and I continue to support it every year. I'm a true believer that great things start with a conversation. And I also learned that as a man of faith, that, Bishop will speak more about this, but correct me if I'm wrong, Bishop, but it says, in the beginning, there was a word, right?
That's what it says
There
so
was,
far.
there was a word.
So far.
So far, I'm right. There was a word, right? And the word was with God. And the word was God.
It was with God.
Huh?
With God.
Right. See, I said I need to
doing
be
all right.
corrected. That's what that means to me from a layman term, is that there's power in words. Words can build communities. Words can also destroy communities. And even if those words get forgiven, they are never forgotten. So what I'm saying in that is, depending of how we use words, it shows the power of words, depending on how we use it. And in this community, we have chosen that we will use words to build our communities. And this is why, as a community, we must continue to do that, so that we avoid the so-called them versus us. Police is supposed to be for us. Police is supposed to be one of us. But because the way we have used our words and our deeds, we see police as the other. And it shouldn't be like that. It shouldn't be like that. And this work right here, why I continue to support it, is to get back to that basic, making sure that police is for us, because police officers are just people like us. And we want to bridge that gap. We want to make sure that that divide is not there. We want to make sure that the words that come out of our mouth, our deeds, do not leave scars when they are forgiven. We want to continue to push ourselves to make sure that we are a community that celebrate, embrace each other, whether it's through police or the community, so that we continue to build that unity that we all want. And for that, I got to go to my chicken dinner. Thank you.
And lastly, before we go into our panel discussion, I want to bring Beth Broadway, who's the president and CEO of Interfaith Works.
I'm like you, Chief. I can't talk without a pen and paper in my hand. So that's old school, right? So I want to give my greetings tonight, and as I welcome everyone, especially to the esteemed elected and appointed officials that are here tonight, and to the community members, police officers, and IFW staff, especially to our leader, of the Center for Dialogue and Action, and her staff team, Pete Wilner and Kiana Garner, who are here tonight. I think Leah Jacobs was here also. So thank you to our staff. It's a small, thank you, Joel, a small and mighty staff who are doing this work for us. They have really entered into a covenant together, these elected officials, appointed officials, the community members, the officers, and our staff, in what I call an important covenant. It's a covenant to strengthen and improve the relations between police and community, and Interfaith Works has been dedicated to this work for over 20 years in various models and modes. And we have sat with many chiefs' offices, many community centers, and church basements, and on many front porches in order to do this very essential work. And we cannot say enough this year about the involvement of Chief Joseph Cecil in this year's programming, and offer our thanks to him and to your leadership team for the belief in this work and the importance of dialogue as a tool for shared public safety, trust, and belief in one another in the community. We want to appreciate Mayor Ben Walsh's offices, and especially Deputy Mayor Sharon Owens' dedication to this work. And we want to thank the Common Councilors for their commitment. My personal commitment and the commitment of our agency will remain strong with all of you as we work to continue to build bridges across racial and ethnic lines and across the divides that can only be bridged by honest conversation and trusting spaces. The staff of IFW Center for Dialogue and Action have put their whole hearts into this work, which now serves as a model for many other communities, just like many things about Syracuse that makes us special. And we are planning to be in this work together for the long haul when it comes to bridging divides. I want to say that these challenging and sometimes and often adversarial relationships that are set up across our nation between the police and communities were baked into the character of our lives together long before we stood at this moment. They were baked in there from people like Bull Connors and to the requirements, which those of you that know I read a lot and I look at a lot of documentaries. I learned last night that in the 1930s, the Miami police officers were required to be members of the KKK in order to be put on the force. These are outrageous practices, and I'm happy and proud to say that in my community, that has not happened. And our people are not Bull Connors, and our people are not part of the KKK. Instead, we find officers who are genuinely willing to listen, to look, and to learn, and community members who are dedicated to building positive and healthy relationships with police. And the police are dedicated to hiring practices that strengthen and diversify the force, and training practices that promote a force that looks like the community and believes in the community. This is work, this dialogue work, that requires time, patience, and as Chol has said, forgiveness, and a look to the future. And we look forward to hearing tonight's panelists and to continue this very, very life-giving and life-important work. And thank you to all of you for coming.
Now we're going to have Pete Wilner. He's our Strategic Partnerships Manager. He's actually going to share with you some of our findings and observations from our year-long dialogue. Pete?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it's a great honor for me to be here tonight and to see all of you. And I get a chance to talk about the findings. So there's a little bit of a question. We've heard all these incredible opening statements. Thank you for those. How do we know? I mean, how do we know that dialogue between community members and police officers works? And so that's what I'm here to run through. We engaged a total of 827 people in 2023 when it comes to how can we begin to build and deepen relations between community and police. That occurred over the year. In the first 6 months, we were very deliberate. Before we started the police community dialogues, the very first thing we did was we met with groups, individual groups. We met with shareholders. We held community forums. We didn't have police and community come together. We wanted to kind of get a sense of what are the issues that people are facing? What are they concerned about? Give them a chance to be heard. We used that to design our dialogue guide before we went into doing the dialogue work in the fall. We trained facilitators. Some of them are here tonight. We trained 6 community facilitators and 5 police officers. So they facilitated the dialogues together, a police officer, community member together with a group of police officers and community members. They met 4 times, 2 hours each. We had a total of 35 people who met, and we're hoping we can build on that in the coming year and engage more people. After the dialogues finished, we engaged press, we engaged media, we had a lot of impressions, and we're trying to publicize these findings. And as we move on, thinking about how dialogue actually positively changes attitude. I mean, we heard President Helen Hudson say we have to listen with our heart. We heard Chief Cecil talk about dialogues breaking down divisions among us. How do we know that? So we did a pre and post survey of all participants. Before the dialogue started, we gave them a pre-survey. And when they finished, we gave them a post-survey. And we measured across different dimensions. And some of the major findings are there. They're here, and I'm just going to read a couple of them. So we saw from pre to post among all participants, almost a 32% increase that police better understand community concerns as a result of being in the dialogue. We saw a 25% increase that community members are respectful in their interactions with police. We saw a 25% increase nearly that community members think police apply public safety rules fairly as a result of being in the dialogue. And we saw a 23% increase that community members have an opportunity to get to know police. That's something we hear all the time. How can we get to know police more? How can we have opportunities to do that? So dialogue positively changes attitudes as a result of that. Having the time to be together and to be led by facilitators through a dialogue guide. Dialogues engage a diverse group of people. So one of the things is we're listening. You might be thinking, so what? Like, so what's next? What are the things that we can do as a community? Here's some things that we've heard. As we have been talking with people, as we've been pulling facilitators and participants together to get their feedback about ways we can improve, deepen the project. So we definitely hear, and we've heard this tonight, that people think the dialogue should continue. This is work that's worth building on. Dig deeper into meaningful engagements between our community and our police department. Engage a broader demographic of our community. So we really want to be trying to engage more in diverse groups, build on that in terms of who's in these dialogues, people from our new American communities. Youth, more youth is definitely something we hear a lot about. LGBTQIA communities, mental health and disability communities. How can we engage more people in this conversation? We want to continue to engage with the Syracuse Police Department. We want to refine the dialogue program, and it's a challenging job. And we want to try to be able to meet how we can deliver a dialogue that can meet scheduling needs of officers so we can engage more officers in this. Continuing to educate the public, that's what we're hoping this is part of doing. Definitely convening a youth forum. The engagement with youth is a really clear message that keeps coming forward. How can we engage more youth in this effort? And then really supporting more events where police and community can engage with each other. Beyond a dialogue, there really is an interest in getting to know, having officers and community members get to know each other. And so those are some of the next steps. And what I would say too is back there, right near where my colleague Andrea is standing, there's a little chart with some Post-it notes. So if you have an idea or a thought about things we can be doing, we want to hear from you. There's Post-it notes right there. You can write down your idea or thought and stick it right on there. We want to hear more ideas about things we can be doing.
Thank you, Pete.
Thank you.
So now we want to move into our panelists, and we've heard a little bit about the process. Process, of course, was challenging. Process went deeper than we have gone in the past. But we have some wonderful panelists here today. I'm going to introduce them, and then I'm going to allow them to tell you a little bit about their experience. So here on the end, we have Miss Janelle Gage. She was one of our community facilitators. Yes. We have Officer Rachel Phillips. She was one of the police facilitators. Yes. We have Officer Richard Solomon, who was our police facilitator and touch point for the police department. Thank you. We have K. Daniel Reed, who was also a community participant. And we actually held one of our dialogues at his church, at his home church. And over here to my left, we have Kiana Gardner, who is a member of our staff and also was a part of the facilitation. So, to get started, we have just a couple of questions of reflections that we want to ask our participants. The first question is why? Why are you here tonight? We'll start with you, Janelle. What made you become a part of the Dialogue Project?
For me, as a community member, as well as a mom and someone who works closely with the community as a nurse, I feel like I've had enough interactions as a community member with the police to have a say on how I would like to see things perhaps change. And the main reason really was for my kids. I have 3 children, 2 of which are young teen boys, and I have concerns about their interactions in the community, both with police and then other community members and how they're treated or how they're viewed by the police. So I felt this would be a good way for me to have or put some action into what was going on in the community and hopefully have a say in any kind of future interactions with not only my kids, but other kids as well that don't have someone that necessarily speak for them.
Thank you, Janelle. Officer.
All right. So the reason why I joined was because reason why I want to work with kids, and I feel as though the community, these kids are going to be, they're going to make the history for the community as well as just anywhere where they go. So to me, I wanted to go and I wanted to hear what everyone's like, their perspective, right? Everyone has a different lens on how they live through life. And right now, there's just a bad taste in general as a whole with like the social media and stuff like that. So I just wanted to go out and I wanted to hear what anyone has to say and how they truly feel. Because to me, I want to hear you. I want to hear you because I want to see what we can do as a team to move this forward as a team because we can't do this alone. So I wanted to come here to see and hear maybe the concerns of what I can do or maybe what I can do to spread awareness, tell my people, like, hey, the community is saying this. What can we do to help maybe meet in the middle here so we can, again, go across that bridge together as a team and not just as a single.
Thank you. Officer Richard.
Like Chief Cecil said, we all have our own story, right? Something that may be significant to me, may be insignificant to somebody else, or vice versa. And I come from a certain place. I come from a group of people who raised me, and that's where my influences are based off of. But as an officer and as a person, I like to think I have a high moral standing. I took this job so I can make sure that the community that I work in is safe. Everybody feels safe and they feel protected, and they're not in fear. I think there's a big difference between feeling safe and being in fear. And I didn't know everybody else's perspective, and I still don't. I could do all the research in the world, but it still wouldn't even be enough. And really the only way to figure it out and bridge the gap is to listen, to hear, and to talk, and to agree and disagree and move on. But as long as we get a better understanding of where everybody came from and where they want to go, we can do it together.
Thank you, Officer. Okay, Daniel.
So I, being a man of faith, right, I felt like God was trying to make me do it because I was approached both by my church and also by my job. I work for ACR Health. When I was approached, absolutely, I wanted to be a part of this. One, because I understand that I have a voice and a perspective that is not shared with everyone in the community, and so it has value just based off of that. Because I was curious to hear what the police would say and how that would coincide and kind of work with, mesh with how I felt and how I felt many people in my community or with certain identities that I have also felt. So I wanted to make sure that voice was at the table. I'm a firm believer that if you're not at the table, you forfeit that voice. And so I wanted to make sure that we had that voice.
Thank you. Thank you. Kiana?
I would say a lot of what has been said already, so I won't repeat. For one, I was assigned this task. And my other reason would be because I have a heart for people and I understand on both sides what's going on from a police view, being that I have some relatives that's police officers. I've engaged with the police, and I'm also from the community. So just being able to see through both of those lenses, I think is very important because you have a view and you have an understanding. So just being in that place to be able to make change, and help make that change, and being just visible, just being there, showing up. And it's a lot for us to speak on different things, but are we really showing up? So for me, this was a time and a moment for me to show up and help bring the community together, as well as the police.
All right, thank you. So the next question that we want to reflect upon is what's unresolved yet for you? And I'm going to just kind of let you all jump in and, at your own comfort. But what's resolved? This was a year-long process. It was, in many regards, a good process. There were some challenges, though. So as you all sit here as participants, facilitators, staff, what is yet unresolved?
I'd love to go first. If I may.
Yeah.
One of the things that really stood out for me through this process was the absence of a certain population from the community being involved, and that is young men of color. I am not a young man anymore. Y'all not supposed to laugh. Don't laugh. But no, I'm no longer a young man. And so that was really, it stuck out to me because a lot of the interactions in the community with the police are with that certain demographic, and that was missing. We were missing that voice, right? Also, the clarity, one of the things that's unresolved for me. I'm not sure what's next. What do we do? We talked about it. We gave recommendations. What happens next?
Thank you. Anybody else? What's unresolved?
I'll have to piggyback off that. I agree with you when you say, now we've done this, what do we do from here, right? We can sit here and say that, hear your side of things and hear our side of things. Now what do we do? How do we walk across this bridge now? And we move forward from there. So that's really, realistically, that's about it.
Mm-hmm. What do other things? What was unresolved?
A lot of it is the same as how will we implement it and how will we enact, how do we get support from the powers that be? Because it's, like you said, it's easy to say you're going to do these things, but it takes people in a position of power to enact it. And how do you make it a responsibility or hold people not so much accountable, but take ownership of our community? Like, how do we own our actions? And I remember one of the comments during one of our dialogue discussions was about getting people to the table and how people got to the table. Were they told they had to come to the table, or did they voluntarily come? And which officers are those that are sitting at this table? I was able to determine when, at the session, these people wanted to come, and that was a part of the positive for me. That's a part that was resolved. And that was a big thing for me, because if it's something that's given, if you're given the option to do it and you decide, that's a choice that you're making, that you actually care. And that meant a lot to me, because I wasn't sure what I was going to come and sit down and hear. And you know how you can tell when people are there for the right reasons versus somebody voluntold them to come. and that wasn't the case at all. So for me, what was resolved is that there are police that actually care about us and care about the community. What was unresolved for me was how do we get the ones that didn't want to come to at least receive what we were learning and to be a positive force in our community.
Thank you.
I just want to start with the resolve part. We got to hear each other, and it wasn't a great, huge sample, but I said it the other week. I've never met any of these people before. I've never stepped in their shoes. And at the end of the day, I mean, we had some officers crying, not in a bad way, in a good way. It's very therapeutic. And we had the community members really listening and feeling how we felt. And I thought it was beautiful. And vice versa, when we heard the community members talk about their experiences and how sometimes, if something bad happens to somebody, it gets generalized. But this way we could actually be constructive and really, really just, again, listen. And, the unresolving part is we don't have an answer. There's 35 people. And luckily, we have these two huge powers, that is Interfaith Works and the city of Syracuse, really to just give us the avenues to express our emotions, our experiences, where we came from, and where we want to be. The question is just, how do we reach, like you said, how do we reach other community members? How do we reach other police officers that have been through the jobs through years or are new? And how do we... what's something tangible that we could do? And I think that's the question.
Thank you. Do you want to chime in?
No, I think everything else was pretty much
Okay. While we're doing the panel, I'm going to have Pete, if you would pass out some of those cards. At the end, we want to take some Q&A from the audience. So if you all could share one thing with the community that you learned, whether it was about the police or about the community, what would you share? One thing that you learned, what was your learning from this process? Either about the police or about the community, or it could be something else that you want to share. One thing that you learned.
I think for me, what stood out the most to me was from the very first day, because I had the opportunity to be a community member for another dialogue session prior to becoming a facilitator for the community. So in both of those sessions, though, the very first day we discussed dialogue versus debate. And that was such a huge eye-opener for me, especially one who likes to argue. I do. I like to argue, right? And discussing debate and dialogue broke it down for me as far as what's the whole goal. But if you're going to debate, you're really not trying to get to an end result. You just want to be right. And I know I'm not the only one that thinks that way, but I will volunteer myself. I am that way. So this helped me learn about, if you're going to have these discussions with people, whether it be with a fellow community member or with a police officer, try to create a dialogue where you're actually trying to come to a common ground. Because dialogue means, I'm actively listening to what you're saying, and I'm trying to take it in and try to make something productive out of it versus conversations over, I was right, you were wrong. And it kind of, the action ends right there if that's the type of discussion that you're in. Mm-hmm. But what I took from this is continuing these conversations and continuing these dialogues, whether it be with the kids, whether it be with a certain demographic, that's what's going to get us to the end result, because everyone's there with the same goal. We want to reach an actual goal instead of just debating all day.
Mm-hmm. That's good. Yeah. Other people are learning something that did you have an aha moment or something that you learned?
The aha for me, I came into this with the question of, why does anyone want to be a police officer? Mm-hmm. And I was so determined to ask that question, and I had the opportunity to ask that question. And there were some beautiful responses from those that were there, and I think there were about 4, 5 police officers in the room who answered that that question. And then I told them why I wanted to know. I needed to know so badly because the historical implications of policing in this country just so rooted in a system that is racist and one-sided. Why would anyone want that? And what was the aha for me was they didn't necessarily know. And it kind of hit my heart because it's something many of us don't have a choice but to know, right? We realize it, we live in it. Historical trauma, generational trauma. And so it's a part of who so many of us are just every day. And you all don't even know that we have this internalized feeling that's so deep rooted and deep seated. You all don't even know. That was like, whoa. So that is what stuck out for me. And I found that one of my recommendations was that we got to educate. The saying, I know I'm going to get it wrong, but if you don't know the history, it'll repeat itself, whatever that. And if you know better, you'll do better. I know that one. Yeah. If you know better, you'll do better, right? You'll have a better approach. And so I'm like, we got to get these folks educated. They got to know what this is historically. I understand that may not be what it is now, but for so many of us, and someone alluded to social media and what we're seeing in the media, not even social media, it's just the media, right, at large. And we're seeing it perpetuated over and over again. And so for many of us, we still see it as a racist system or a system that is completely designed to keep us down, hold us down, keep us back, usurp authority over us. And that's so deeply rooted. I think we need to know, everybody needs to know this kind of fundamental information before entering the force.
If I could piggyback, I kind of have the same aha moment. Obviously different lens, but I didn't, and I still will never understand the generational differences. Like I didn't know, but the only way I could even grasp it was having this dialogue, having this opportunity where, for the most part, we were constructive, but with that comes, a lot of feelings, everything we were taught and our grandparents taught us, and I don't know if I was ignorant or I didn't know, because at the end of the day, like I said before, like I just wanted to serve and protect, but to who? And if I don't know who I'm protecting on a personal level, then how am I going to do it efficiently? So for me, it was really eye-opening, and I hope we can continue doing it and breaking down the barriers.
Yeah, it was real stuff. Anybody else want to jump in?
I can remember Kay Daniels and I were in the same group, and I remember when you asked that question, but one of the officers that were there, he was honest, and he said, I never looked at it that way. I just never would think, that would be on the, on people's minds, on the community's minds. And so I'm thinking, well, if he felt this way, how many more other officers feel that way or haven't had opportunity to have this aha moment, right? They could be in a situation where they have to interact with a community member. You don't know what's in someone's mind when they come into these certain interactions, but that moment right there could be the one thing that makes you stop for a minute and think about the other person's perspective. So I just wanted to say I'm glad you asked that question.
Anyone else? Aha moments, learnings. Okay, we're moving to the last reflective question for the panelists, and then I'm going to read some of your questions. And the panelists, you all can answer, but also we have the chief here, if you wouldn't mind jumping in. A couple questions that you might be able to answer as well. So what is one action? Because this is the big thing. You know, we've been talking about this process, and at the end of it all, it's about what are we going to do now? We realize that much of this is systemic and that there needs to be continual changes within systems, but there's also personal responsibility, right? So based upon your experience in the dialogue, what is one personal action that you will take to advance community and police relations? And that's a question for everyone. Just one thing that you feel that you can do or you want to do to create this bridge.
When I'm on shift, we have this, I don't even know if it's a new thing, but it's a new term. It's called a COPS call. It's a community-oriented policing call. So it may not look it, but I'm a really good basketball player. And whenever I see kids playing basketball, I say, you want to do one-on-one or two-on-two? All the time. Chief Cecil embarrassed me a little bit, said I shovel people's driveways. Because I do. Because, you know, I think that's a community-oriented policing. Not every experience you have to have with a police officer is negative, right? Unfortunately, we get called to the bad calls, and that's how it is. People don't give me a call and say, hey, how you doing? Let's have coffee. I mean, sometimes, but, you know, we're not here just to enforce. You know, we're here to have a good presence, and I keep preaching it, make you feel safe. If you've got a family member that has a bad back and I'm in the neighborhood, I'll shovel their driveway. You got some kids who want to get dunked on a 5-foot hoop, I'll dunk on them. If not, so be it. But even with adults, if someone looks like they're having a hard time, I won't even put myself on a call. I just stop and pull over. I say, hey, what's going on? Sometimes the interaction's not great, which it can be expected, but sometimes, hey, people want to talk, want to be listened, want to be heard, want to be seen. So that's just something personally I try to do. Don't look at my call logs. I try to do every shift if I can, because if you can make that one good interaction, maybe it gets paid forward.
One action.
I've tried to be a champion for these dialogues. I understand that I have influence, I have community, and I've been talking about it since we've been doing it. But because I want more of us to be involved, and so I've committed to that. Making sure that I'm championing this effort and encouraging other folks who look like me, who have some similar experiences as me, to be a part of this project.
Thank you.
For me, I feel like one of the things that starts at home with my kids, and you know, when they first found out I was having engaging conversations with the police, my kids were looking at me like I had 10 heads. They're like, "You doing what?" And I'm like, "We're having conversations with the police. It shouldn't be foreign, because the police officers are there to serve you and your community, and you should be able to look to them for help before you look to run from them or think that you're in trouble or anything like that." And so those kind of conversations, you know, I'm trying to have at home, and have these kind of conversations, just dig deep into how they feel and their perceptions, and then doing the same thing, advocating and volunteering my time to have these kinds of conversations. And I feel like I couldn't recommend it without going through it myself. But now that I've done it myself, I can validate it and say, no, this is legit. This is something that it takes time and effort, but it's a positive thing, and it's something that should be promoted more, you know, whether it be in school, whether it be on social media or in the media, in the community. It's something that needs more engagement. And so my action is just to volunteer my time, perhaps be a part of another group for upcoming facilitator workshops and programs, and just spread the word about what we have, and hopefully watch it grow in the community.
Thank you.
I would say, for me, this is a trailblazer process. You know, we're paving a way, and my thing is to keep everyone connected. They're key players that are very effective in what's being done in this work. So continuing to just pave that way, you know, and as we pave the way, with the understanding that, you know, we have those key players in place. So if we have those in place, we're good. You know, we're going to track and we're going to get those that will be involved and will be there to help transform this relationship amongst the police and the community. So I think we're at a good place, and that's my action, to continue the path, keep it going.
So similar to what, Officer Solomon was saying, ideally, people who call 911 for police, they're not calling to hang out, they're calling to help, they want help. So it's kind of hard, but what I try to do is, build that rapport with that individual. Sometimes, that's what they want to hear, they want you to listen, and then I'll go check on them. If it's not the next day or a few days later, I think it's very nice that, especially the elderly, you go and talk to them and they love it. They absolutely love that, and go check in like, oh, how are you? How's your puppy? Or, being that role model for the other officers who are a little timid to come out in the community because of the social medias and stuff like that, with everybody just having such that hatred towards police that they're just a little timid to get shut down right away. But them seeing other officers, showing that, hey, they're nice, just say hi, interacting that way, like no one's gonna bite. See the kids playing. I actually had a couple officers, last week going sledding with the kids outside when there was some snow on the ground, and I love that. I was like, you know what? That shows everybody else that, the kids who are also timid, they're like, I want to hang out, but I don't know are they okay with me? So I thought that was really cute that they took their time out of their day to go show some, play and stuff like that with the kiddos to let them know, like, hey, we're here to help you, but we also are human, and we're going to have fun with you and make it a fun experience for you guys.
Thank you. Thank you. So I have a couple of questions that I want to throw out there. This first question from the audience is about recruiting. And Chief, I don't know if you would be willing to answer this question. It says, is there a recruiting problem for Syracuse police officers? And is it because they perceive that being a cop is good, is a bad thing? Sorry.
Yeah, great question. So the answer is yes. We're having difficulty recruiting. Just to give you an idea about numbers, when I came on the list, meaning the civil service list, had upwards of 800 people on it. And that would be my class with 38. So they were hiring 38 with 800 people on that list. We're about to go into another class under Mayor Walsh. We hope to swear him in April. We pulled the civil service list last week. There's 81 people on it. That's what's happened over the course of several years. The numbers of people taking the test have dropped to numbers we've never seen. I've never seen it. I hate to be the old person in the room and keep saying that in my career, but I haven't seen those numbers throughout my entire career. We used to be a department of 500 cops. We are now sitting at about 380. It makes it difficult with those numbers to do the things these two officers are talking about and the things the other officers want to do, which is get out of their car and engage with the public. I will say this, and again, I hate to keep saying this term, but in my entire career, I've never seen the willingness to engage with the public with these younger officers. They're all younger than me, but there's a certain generation in the last 5 years that we hired on, maybe a little beyond that want to get out of their cars. They want to engage with the public. They don't want to just race across the city back and forth and take calls. They want to engage and get to know the public, get to know the folks in their territory. So that's happening, but it's more and more difficult when you have fewer and fewer officers because the calls do not stop, and they haven't gone down like the recruitment has. But we have a bunch of things in place. We keep chugging along to get the recruits on, and I don't want to take up all the time here, but one of the big game changers for us was the cadet program. We started it 2 years ago. The first year was not what I would call successful. The second year was. We had 14 individuals that came from an array of backgrounds, primarily, though, from Fowler's, PSLA, where kids have decided I want to be police, fire, or EMS, taking them right out of not out of high school, but they've graduated and decided they want to be police, bringing them in our ranks, giving them a real paycheck to do real jobs, not just answer the phone at the front desk, but learn every aspect of the police department, go on ride-alongs, write reports, go out and canvass neighborhoods. And when say we're having a crime trend, like a burglary crime trend, go door to door and talk to people about crime prevention, really learn that. And then after they reach the age where they can take the test, which is 20 and a half, come on our police department, having already been part of our police department. What happens is we get a diverse population, many times with language skills, and again, people that want to be the police. In this next academy we're going to put on in April, I believe 5 or 6 of those cadets who have been already in the program have passed both the written and the physical, and will be joining our ranks along with whoever else we can pull out of the civil service test. So the cadet program, as it begins to mature, is going to be the true game changer for us as far as getting folks on our ranks.
Thank you, Chief.
Welcome. I'm going to go back to my.
So this question is actually to the officers on the panel. It's about interaction with the children, and how do you see interaction through the police department, whether it's through PAL or through other activities? How do you see that advancing and increasing over the years?
Jimmy Oliver does a great job. I'm sure you guys know him a lot better than I do. Every kid needs a good influence, and every kid needs a good outlet. And the more that we could help provide is going to be better for the children. So when I meet kids from, any age really, but toddler and up, or even a baby, if mom's having a hard time or dad's having a hard time, like I'll take the baby. I'll borrow the baby, burp, milk, do whatever. I could do that. But really, in today's day and age with the social media we spoke about, sometimes it's hard for kids to express their emotions or to have a conversation face to face. And some other kids, it's actually really easy. They'll tell you how they feel right away. But like I said before, the only way to figure out where everybody's coming from, what everybody's doing, is to talk to them. We have a great school resource program. Sergeant G. Russo's the head of that, and he does a wonderful job. He has a ton of officers that work and know the kids by name and know the parents and where they come from. But like Chief Cecil said, it's really difficult with we have less officers wearing more hats. So I could tell you personally that, and even for Rachel, because she did a temp transfer in our abused persons unit and worked with a lot of children. Like that's our biggest thing, and I think from the dialogues, the youth is so important. All we want to do is make sure that they're okay and their families around them, so that they could thrive in their environment.
Like I said, so like right now the kids, like they're young, but they are the future for not only just the city, but in general as a whole, right? Could be the next president, could be the one that next travels the world, or et cetera. But to me, like I know we discussed this, Kiana, about the community dialogue, and maybe start bringing the children in so we can start gaining their point of view. Because, we have the younger kids who love police, but then you get to the teenage years and you're like, I don't know how to talk to them, you know what I mean? So it's just I was probably 2 weeks ago, I saw a couple kids playing basketball, I go out there and talk to them, and then I didn't even realize that they were actually teenagers. And I'm like, holy crap, they were nice to me. I didn't know how to react, I'm like, wow, they actually like me, So I thought that was a pretty cool idea that we brought up, and maybe possibly doing another community dialogue and bringing the kiddos in and getting their point of view of everything, and maybe just in life in general, and hearing their side of things, and just trying to maybe get them to better understand as police world, or maybe just adults in general, with the respect and everything else nowadays. But I think that'd be a pretty cool thing to get into.
Kiana, do you want to talk a little bit about our interaction with Hillside? Because it hasn't been lost on us that we needed to engage young people. It's tough, as one of these questions talks about, numbers and getting, great numbers. Trust me, as we were out there starting this process, no one was jumping on the bandwagon saying, oh yeah, we want to have a conversation with the police. Trust me, This is not something that people are like, oh, rah, rah, rah. You have to really talk to people. We met with, we love you all, but that's just the reality. That's just the reality. That's just the reality. So we actually had to meet with a number of community stakeholders, like one-on-one, to just kind of get their feedback. And we did that hard, grueling work. I think we had over 100 meetings with our staff, one-on-one with stakeholders and residents to talk about this. People were just like, So this is not a process that is easy. This is not a process where people are just like, oh yeah, let's do this. So we had to show ourselves worthy of continuing this process by really being out there. So Kiana, you want to talk a little bit about our relationship with some of the youth from Hillside?
Yeah, so Corinda Shane, she's the executive director for Hillside Work Scholarship Connection. I reached out to her, and when I was speaking earlier of key players, she's one of those key players. She came to our kickoff meeting, she was there for training, and she's very invested in this program because she also has young men, I believe 3. So she's really invested in it. I have talked to her. Pete and I did a training with some of the youth to see what their experiences were with the police officers. And surprisingly, we thought we were going to hear a lot of just crazy stories, but it wasn't like that. Some of the youth were saying, we don't have those engagements with the police officers. So for me, it was thinking, okay, well, we know it always goes back to home. What's being taught in the home, what's going on there. And then the other thing was, maybe they have a different experience with the police officers. So we just thought, Pete and I talked about that, and see where could we go with this. So moving forward, we hear what everyone is saying. We're taking it in. Rachel and I had conversations. They were actually at the Phoenix Student Center doing their dialogue there. I reached out to Corinda, and, we're going to have a meeting where possibly we can have dialogue there because they have all 5 high schools there at that location. So if we can get it, all the work is done. They have vans, they have all of that. So that's in the works. We're working on meeting with them, having these conversations and putting that in place because we do hear and we know a lot of the youth are being involved with a lot of the crime, a lot of things going on, and it can be fixed. So Glad, I hope that answers
Yeah, that's
what
good. I
you're,
just wanted to
so it's
wanted
in the
to share
works.
out. Yeah.
It's in the works.
So this question is really a kind of a collaboration of some of the other questions I have. This will be our last question. Any thoughts on training implications, both in the academy and community engagement trainings? I don't know if that's something, Chief, you could speak on, and maybe even the other officers. But that's something that we've heard a lot of, and just want to know what might be in the works. Training implications both in the academy and community engagement, just trainings with police officers around competency or whatever trainings that you think might be beneficial for them through this process.
So we are always adding things to the academy. Keep in mind, it's 6 months long. DCJS fills it with requirements. DCJS is Department of Criminal Justice. They fill it with hours and hours of requirements. So whenever we can find spots that we think are valuable, we'll use them. We brought a guy in under Chief Buckner for cultural competency. He's well known throughout, I can't think of his name offhand, but well known throughout the entire country for his lectures on this. We brought him in, and for the first time ever, I'm saying that again, no, first time ever, we not only ran that cultural competency past the academy, but every officer on our department and every single civilian on our department as well. It was an eye-opening experience for a lot of people that saw that. But we are always adding things to the academy when we think they will be valuable, whether it's things for the officers, DCJS required things, or things that we think will benefit the officers when they get out of the academy and go out and start policing in the communities.
All right, thank you, Chief. Welcome. So closing thoughts from our panelists, reflections, closing thoughts for this evening.
If I may, I would just like to reiterate that recommendation that I had brought up earlier about having something intrinsically within your orienting or training for officers about the history of, right, and how the community might feel about that. So folks know, like I said, I don't want to beat the dead horse, but folks can know who they're policing, who they're protecting and serving, who they are interacting with. You know better, you do better. And then also just what can I do? Is a question that I have. Like, what can I do as a community participant moving forward?
Thank you. Thank you.
Look forward to seeing the youth program grow and perhaps these types of courageous conversations occur with the police as well as the kids, because if not for anything else, a familiar face is goes a long way. And instead of it, we sat for 4 sessions with the same police officers, and I remember I think H.W. Smith put up a picture, and they had like a police day or something, but there were 2 cops that were from my session that were there, and my kids went to that school before they moved on to Nottingham. And it was just a familiar face. And I'm like, I was happy to see those 2 cops were the ones that were around my kids, or could potentially be around my kids, because I knew where their head was at, And so the more these conversations continue and the more we interact and our children can interact, I think it just provides like a safety net, because it's not the first time this officer is seeing this child. They may have been at the facilitator group with them for a month or 2, and now they're in the middle of something. It's their first interaction isn't a negative one. It's actually one that they've had a positive experience with them, and it just may stave off some negative interactions. So I look forward to seeing this continue with the group, and I piggyback off of the whole cultural competence training piece too, because that's huge. I just appreciate the fact that it's here.
Thank you.
Yep.
Closing reflections.
Well, the first one is seriously, thank you to Interfaith Works. I mean, you brought us all together, and I keep saying you did the heavy lifting, because you did. And we wouldn't be. I could talk forever. I could just keep talking and talking and talking. But I could say that for everybody here, because honestly, this isn't a ploy. Like, we're compassionate about this, and there's nothing better than a smile on the face. I said it the other week, like, I hear you and I'm here for you, and I'd like that to be a thing for every officer. And I'd like that to be for community members too. If you ever see me, me getting dunked on by kids in the street, you back me up. No, but this starts small, and we just want to grow it. So the more interaction we have, the more avenues we get, the more faces we see, the better it is. And maybe, what's the end goal? We don't want to have to worry about everybody. We don't have to worry about one another. We want to, go in your home, say hello, come in my home, say hello, have some coffee, do something like that. So, whatever we could do.
Thank you, officer.
So, just in general, I didn't know what to expect when doing this dialogue. I was asked, and I said I would absolutely attend this, because I just felt as though this is just my calling. And when I met with Kiana and Pete, I just felt so welcomed. And then meeting the community, and I'll be 100% honest with you, I was nervous, because I was like, I didn't know what to expect, But just hearing the community members, I just felt so welcomed. Even though they had a different point of view on something, I just felt like it was still, like, we were building that trust, just knowing that, like, hey, I'm frustrated, but, like, I know we can get through it. So it was definitely nice to have this program 100%, because it's different out there when you're working, you're in your uniform, in your cop car or whatever, and it's just hard to build that connection versus when you're in civilian clothes. So it's just like starting there. It's not gonna, we gotta walk before we start running. So we gotta start somewhere, but consistency is key. So I'm hoping that the more we can do this, the more consistency we can get, we can build that trust, and hopefully that something small can be bigger, and then we can look at each other as not just community, but a big family as a whole.
Thank you. Thank you. You good? All right. Well, thank you all. Thank you all for being here. We know it's been a late night, but we wanted to share this process so that people would have a better understanding of what we did. Thank you to Chief Cecil, to Madam President, to all the counselors. Our deputy mayor actually had another engagement. She was supposed to bring closing remarks, but she wasn't able to make it. But again, we are here. Pete is here, Kiana, myself, Andrea is here. If you want to connect with us, you can email us, you can stop by the Center for Dialogue and Action. We really want to make this project more progressive. We want this project to be successful. We want to continue on. Thank you to our officers and our panelists. Come on, let's give them a round of applause. Thank you for being here. And let's continue to build those bridges. Thank you.
Which one were you at?
Yeah, I just pushed it away so.